Good afternoon, and welcome to the University of Toronto Mississauga's webinar on soothing your psyche for yoga for everybody. My name is Shaliza Ibrahim, and as a UTM alumna, I am so pleased to welcome you today and look forward to what is sure to be an enlightening presentation. Today, we have alumni and friends from all over the world watching this event. They are from Germany, Hong Kong, Japan, France, Guyana, Dakar, Panama, Trinidad and Tobago. We have alumni from Spain, Sweden, Serbia, England, Switzerland, Norway, and all across Canada and the United States. So welcome, everyone. So following this presentation, there will be a moderated question and answer period, and we encourage you to submit questions using the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. However, please hold off on submitting your questions until after the initial presentation is finished, as your question might be addressed during that time. If you have any technical difficulties, you can also use the Q&A button, and one of our staff will be there to assist you. As I mentioned a moment ago, my name is Shaliza. I am a professor teaching and researching in the areas of mathematics and higher education at UTM. My work spans across local contexts, but also across the Caribbean with a focus on numeracy, STEM fields, and university pedagogy. I have a PhD in science education, a master's in science communication, and an honors in biology from the University of Toronto, Mississauga. I am also a faculty advisor in student achievement for the Faculty of Medicine here at UTM, and I'm honored to also serve as a mentor for the University of Toronto Women in Science and Computing, and of course, a board director for UTM Mississauga's Alumni Association. And in these roles as advisor and mentor, I hope to foster academic excellence, but I realize how much this is connected to the care of our bodies and our psyche. So I'm really delighted today to introduce our presenter, a fellow UTM alumna, yoga instructor, author, artist, and podcast host, Megan Morgan. Hi, Megan.
Good morning, Shaliza. Thank you so much for being here today. And it's been really nice working with you and meeting you.
It's an honor for me. So a little bit about Megan. Megan has been practicing yoga for over 20 years. And she's completed her 200-hour yoga teacher training in Toronto in 2013. After graduating from the University of Toronto in 2009, she moved to San Francisco, where she completed her master's in fine arts and photography at the San Francisco Art Institute. Megan's photographs were published in the 2014 Harvard University Press Journal. It was titled The Image of the Black in Western Art, the 20th Century and the Rise of Black Artists. Just incredible work. In 2019, Megan's first book was published entitled The End of Me, an autobiographical memoir. Most recently, in 2020, she launched the podcast Maya, or My Yoga Audio, to bring audio-only yoga practice, meditation, and wellness-oriented interviews to listeners all over the world. So thank you so much for being with us today, Megan. I'm going to let you take it away while I prepare for this practice. I have my yoga mat ready to go.
Great. Thank you so much for that fabulous introduction. And just to give everybody a little bit of a heads up, I have two little doggies who may or may not wander into this practice with us. They often do that when I pull out my mat. They think it's their time. So hopefully that won't disrupt anything too much, or if you hear them kind of yipping along in the hallway, that's just them going about their business. So I want to invite everybody to just stay right where they are, actually, if you're seated in a chair or on your mat, and come into some breathing and centering exercises. I found myself getting a little bit nervous this morning preparing for this, and I teach all the time, including virtually and in person. And one of my teachers once told me, when you get nervous about something, it's because it's important to you and you want to do a good job. And I certainly want everybody to have a positive experience. So starting from exactly where you are, just seated, or if you're standing, feel free to stay standing. And just close your eyes and take a moment to connect with your breath. Just noticing how you're breathing. And as you inhale, start to roll your shoulders up towards your ears and kind of hold them there for a second. You might feel a little bit of a crick crack. And then as you exhale, roll the shoulders down and away and kind of feel your shoulder blades wrapping around on the spine, lifting your chest. Next inhale, breathe in, roll those shoulders up towards your ears again. As you exhale, bring those shoulder blades together and try to do some audible breathing. So as you inhale through your nose, when you exhale, try to have it come out through your mouth with a and if it feels appropriate, we can't see one another, try even doing an exhale, like opening your mouth really wide, sticking out your tongue and just like pressing out any energy, any feeling that you might be feeling that doesn't serve you right now. Just letting it go. One more big breath in. And then just letting your hands rest comfortably in your lap, like right on your knees. And close your eyes, sit up as tall as you can. Take a breath in. As you exhale, just turn your chin towards your right shoulder, bringing it as far as you can. It may go right over your shoulder. It may not. We're all a little bit different. Hold it there for a breath in. And coming back through center on your breath out. Switching sides. Inhale through the nose. As you exhale, over towards the left. And just do that a couple of more times. Inhaling to come through center. And try to keep your eyes closed or a very soft gaze. Your eyes just open a little bit. And then exhale over to the right. A few more times. And going really slowly. Sometimes this can feel disorienting if you go too quickly because you're changing your perspective. Try to keep those eyes closed. And if there are sounds going on around you in whatever environment you're in, you might hear cars going by on the street outside my window here. So just absorbing all of that as part of the practice. Yoga invites us to sit with ourselves wherever we are. So I want that for you, whatever your situation is, no matter how much noise is going on, coming back to that breath. Big inhale. Big exhale. Now let's stretch our arms out in front of us. So reaching our fingers nice and long, arms come out directly from the shoulders, and then just cross your palms on top of your shoulders. Now, if this feels, impossible or too difficult, whether you're really broad-shouldered or you have a very large chest, you can always just hold at the elbows or wherever you reach in your arms. And take a big breath in and then just start to rock side to side, just right in your chair, or if you're standing or seated. And again, probably wise to keep your eyes closed just so you don't feel dizzy. And this is a movement borrowed from Kundalini yoga, which kind of stirs up our energy from the base of our spine, right below the sacrum, and invites it through this twisting movement to travel up through our bellies, through our rib cage, through our heart, through our throat, and out through the mouth and the nose. It's kind of like a warm-up without doing something too intense. And then just stop, come back through center, take a big breath in, and a big breath out. And then we'll outstretch our arms again, reaching them forward, wiggle those fingers, and then switch your sides. So we're gonna cross our arms again, but opposite, and it will feel weird. It feels really strange because your natural inclination is to do one particular arm or hand over the other. And so that's normal. And again, we're gonna do a little rock, and you might feel your breath start to swirl up through the spine again, coming down from the sacrum, up through the belly, through the rib cage, through the chest, the throat, the nose, and the mouth. If you're really lucky, you can feel that energy reach the top of your head. And again, not too fast. It's like giving yourself a hug, just kind of shaking up your jar of emotional and breath awareness. And slowly, slowly come to a stop. Now stretch the arms one more time, release, and bring them back down onto the legs. Again, shrug the shoulders, turn the head side to side, welcoming everyone who has joined in these last few minutes. So one more breathing exercise I want to go over with you before we start to move a little bit more off our chairs, if that feels welcome to you. So there's a practice called alternate nostril breathing. And this is something that, I've been taught in my yoga teacher training that I teach all the time, but I found during the last 2 years, especially during the pandemic, this has been something people have asked me to return to again and again because it helps bring our nervous systems down. It really calms us down. So it involves bringing your thumb and your ring finger, your fourth finger together. But you start with your thumb on your right nostril and you're leaving the rest of your fingers free for now. And you take a big breath in through that left nostril. Then close that left nostril with your ring finger. Open up the right nostril, breathe out. Might look or feel a little bit weird, but it's supposed to. So inhale through that right nostril. Close with the right thumb. Open with the left ring finger. Exhale out. Inhale through that left nostril. Close it off. Open through the right side. Exhale. Inhale through the right nostril. Close it off. Exhale through the left. Just one more round. Inhale through that left nostril. Close it off. Exhale through the right. Now take one more inhale through that right side. And just let that hand fall away. Come back to your lap and kind of do a little, you might feel your sinuses clearing a little bit. Typically in class, we go much longer. Sometimes you can go for about 5 or 10 minutes. And that in and of itself can be a really helpful yoga practice in the sense of like when allergy season is high or when you're feeling anxiety, when you get that feeling that you're only breathing in the chest and not all the way down into the belly, that alternate nostril breathing can really, really be helpful. So if you feel comfortable moving off of your chairs, I'll invite you to come into a standing position. If you're not comfortable coming off the chair, you can stay right here and I'll try to do some modifications that you can do from a seated position. So I'm just going to get up and move my chair out of the way and step back. And tilt my camera a little bit here so you can see my mat. Good. So coming to the top of your mat, the center of your mat, wherever you're standing, if you're standing, and into a forward fold. Now, if you're in a chair, just stay seated right where you are. Take a breath in and start to fold over the legs right in your chair. If you're standing, come to a nice big breath in. Reach the arms up high, maybe touch them overhead. As you exhale, nice forward fold. Let your head hang down, looking at your knees. And I'll demonstrate most of the poses with you here today, but I want to make sure you can hear me and I'm not bent over into my own legs doing my own practice and losing sight of what you need as a participant. So we'll be here in our forward fold and your legs can be straight if that feels good and challenging to you. But if that feels too challenging, try putting a bend into your knees. So the goal isn't to touch your toes. If you reach them, that's great. You can take hold of the toes and pull them up. You can also just leave the knees really bent and kind of hang like a rag doll. Shake out your head and just feel your belly resting right on your thighs. There's no need to have any kind of body perfection issues here. Yoga is less about the physical things you're able to do than it is about maintaining your breath through challenging things. It becomes a roadmap to how we approach our lives. So hanging here in a forward fold. Take a big breath in and halfway lift. Just press into your shins, looking forward. Get a nice long spine and a long neck. Even feel like your chest is lifting. Inhale. As you exhale, fold again. You can keep the knees bent or straight. And we'll do that 3 more times. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, fold. Breathe in. Breathe out. Try to make your breath audible. Really connect down into that belly. Breathe in. Breathe out. Now inhale all the way back up to standing again. And take a moment to really press all the corners of your feet and your toes into your mat. So maybe even one by one. I know that might not be possible for everybody, but try pinky toe, all the little piggies down one at a time, and then lift them back up. You can look down at them. So when practicing yoga, especially in the more challenging poses, we always think it's like, brute muscle strength that hold us in these poses. We have to be using our bodies efficiently. And so making sure you're using your whole foot when you're standing and you're not rotating out and going on the edges of your feet. Big toes pressed down. So inhale, let's reach our arms up high. Take a hold of your left wrist. And as you exhale, come over towards the right side. And as you're kind of sideways bending here, making sure you're keeping your chest lifted, your belly pulled in, and your tailbone tucked under. So what we don't want to see is you're hunching like this to the side and kind of rolling forward. We want you to be nice and tall and stretching over. It doesn't matter how tall you actually are. You just want to find your full length and pull up and pull over while breathing steadily. And as you do this, the foot that you're leaning away from, press that one down extra firm, right? Because the urge is there to lift it up, right? And go with your body sway, but you want to stay rooted. So coming back through center. This pose is commonly called Tadasana, so where you're standing just palms facing forward, shoulders rolled back. We want to lift up, take a hold of our opposite wrist, so our right wrist, and leaning over to the other side. And so really feel that lengthening in the hip. And this time you're really pressing down on that right foot, being aware of all the toes, not letting that foot lift up. You want to keep it pressed down. Nice long spine. Maybe you look up towards your fingers. And come back through center. Exhale, forward fold. Shake it all out. Maybe bend the knees, wiggle the toes. So I mentioned that this was Tadasana. So in Sanskrit, all yoga poses end with the word asana because that's the Sanskrit word for the movement that it is. So with Tadasana, it's also called mountain pose in English translation. And it's the thought that you can start your practice from like your own personal stance. So finding your powerful stance. From here, I wanted to move you into Utkatasana, which is called chair pose. And so we were just seated in our literal chairs, right? And if you're still in your chair, you have an advantage. So with Utkatasana, we want to bring our big toes to touch if possible. That may not be possible in all bodies. And if that's true for you, step them about hip distance apart. If they're stepped apart, you just need to keep the knees apart rather than knocking together. But if you're keeping your feet together, then keep your knees together. So just choosing one. So then you're sitting down as low as you possibly can, your pretend seat. So if you were at IKEA, would you be choosing a dining stool, a counter stool, a bar stool, right? So there's no shame in whatever pose you choose. Now we sweep the arms forward and up, and we sit into our seat. Try to lift your toes. And again, like most yoga poses, we're trying to pull the belly in, tuck the tailbone under, and lift the heart so that our breath flows nice and easily. Big breath in. See if you can sink a little bit lower on your breath out. Now, if having the arms raised feels too intense, you can bring palms to heart center. Just really focus on those legs. You can also return palms to the shoulders and give yourself a little encouraging hug. You can also bring the hands behind you. For some people, reaching forward, it can feel like you're just really hunching and you can't keep your spine straight and your shoulders open. So bring them behind you. All right, big breath in. Exhale, forward fold. Shake out those legs, those knees. It's pretty common for most people. Chair poses, love or hate. Most likely you're going to feel your quads start to really activate there. And it's a great pose to kind of find your philosophical place in the world. Like, what kind of a seat do you want to take today? So the challenge always being, we all deserve a seat at the table, right? In the working world, at our family dinner table. So where are you on that scale today? And it will change. Something you can add into that at any time is a chair pose twist. So bringing your palms to heart center, lifting the elbows and hooking onto the outside of one knee and then the other. We don't have to go there today. I just wanted to introduce that to you. And so now, coming into a pose called prasarita, which is wide-legged forward fold. So bring your feet as far apart as you can comfortably on your mat, and maybe even slightly turn in the ends of your feet just so that you don't have your feet pointing out. They're exactly parallel or a little bit in. When we come up into like a star formation, this feels really good on the body because when you have a wide stance, you feel comfortable and expansive and open to possibilities. So you can open your palms and your fingers, your thumbs, maybe even look up. And again, that reminder, pull the belly in, tuck the tailbone under, lift the heart. And as you exhale, start to fold forward, bring your hands to your hips and keeping a straight spine. So don't hunch your shoulders. Start to fold as far forward as you can. If you have a block or a textbook, anything that can help you to settle down with ease here, you can bring that in front of you on any of the three settings and just rest down. Now, for some of you, depending on your practice, you may feel comfortable even putting the top of your head right onto the floor. You may not be able to reach the floor. You may be reaching for the block. You could even just keep your hands at your hips if that's what your muscles are telling you to do here. So you'll feel the muscles in the thigh rolling up and out. So just paying attention more to your breath and the feelings, not so much the feelings that are coming up, but the amount of breathing you're able to maintain. All right, so big breath in, the big breath out. Big breath in, the big breath out. So staying in this position, test out how your toes are feeling. Can you pick up your big toe, your little toe, those other toes, to make sure you can still feel the four corners of your feet pressing down and they're not lifting up, right? And rotating outwards. That's how injuries happen, when our ankles and tendons take the weight of our bodies rather than letting our muscles do the hard work. So one more breath in and a breath out. Now, as you come up, use your block, use your hands. You can even bend the knees a little bit to come up safely, returning to a standing position. Outstretch the arms. And then let's turn our left foot. And probably the way I'm mirroring you, it's the opposite. So it doesn't matter if you do left or right. We'll do both sides. Coming into Warrior Two, which is also called Virabhadrasana 2. And so from here, you want to bend into that front knee, bringing that knee right over your front right ankle. And then your back foot is as far behind you as you can, parallel with the back of the mat. Right, arms come straight out from the shoulders. And you can just look side to side and look if they're approximately parallel. Most of us get the inclination to do this, right? Because we want to like take off. So just try to come wide and parallel as much as you can. And then gaze over your front fingers. Big breath in. Big breath out. Big breath in. Big breath out. Inhale. You got this. Exhale. Now from here, we want to flip our front palm. Oh, here comes Frida and Freddie. Inhale, reach back. Exalted warrior. Now from here, your legs are staying the same. This may feel like too much with your arms reaching up, but you could always let them come back behind you. You could always bend your elbow. You just want to find that length and extension in your spine without crunching or compromising into the low back. So inhale, come back to warrior two, and straighten your front leg. Right, inhale and start to shift forward. So reaching forward as far as you can over that front leg. We're moving into triangle, Trikonasana, right? Reaching up, right arm reaches towards the ceiling or the sky. Left hand can stay either on your leg, or you can bring in a block, or you can just, use your own body parts. Again, if this arm raised feels too challenging, try to bring it around behind you. Just bend that elbow. Have a nice long neck looking up. Inhale and exhale. Check back in with those toes. Make sure you can lift all of them and bring them back down, and the four corners of your feet are pressing down. Now let's inhale, bend into your front knee. Come back into warrior two. Return to center, so turning your left foot to face in again. Return to your star pose. Right. Release. Exhale. Wide forward fold, prasarita, or wide-legged forward fold. And maybe this time you bend the knees and kind of sway side to side. Let that movement go. Those movements that we did, they're fairly gentle and moving through them. They are challenging to the body. So you might notice your heart rate has picked up a little bit, or the body starts to say, hey, what's going on here? Like, what are you asking me to do? I don't want things to be too sweaty. I know it's the middle of the day in Toronto and that people are participating from all over the world, but these are movements you can do anytime on a break from work. Believe it or not, I will go into the hallways at work and do a few of these moves, sometimes just to like get that energy moving again. So let's switch our sides. We've come up from prasarita, right? Our wide-legged forward fold, bending the knees. Return with hands to hips. And we want to repeat what we just did on the opposite side. So turning that right foot to face forward. Back foot now is parallel with the edge of your mat. Extending the arms out from the shoulders, trying to find a balance where the arms are evenly lifted. And this is warrior two. And I want to share a little story about warrior two. I have a left shoulder injury, so I'm going to just let this arm rest for a moment. In warrior two, the story that goes along with that pose is that it's the seat of next right action. So when you read some of the Indian texts and history of the poses, it's like this is a decision-making pose. So when you think philosophically of applying warrior two to your life, I often ask myself, what is the next right thing that I need to do? So if it's in this pose, for me, that means I have to rest this left shoulder because I know I can't hold it up here in this position right now until it's in a better place. If I'm applying it to my life, maybe there's a decision I need to make at work or in regards to my family. So what's that next right action for me? So big breath in, coming back to the pose, big breath out. Good, and then we're gonna flip that front palm, come into exalted warrior, reaching up and back as we kind of release whatever that next right action or concern is that we had up and over our shoulders. Try to have a nice long spine and extended rib cage, no crunching. Then coming back to warrior two. We're going to straighten that front leg and find trikonasana or triangle pose. So you're reaching as far forward as you can till you can't anymore. Oh, we're just going to pet Frida. While I rest that hand on my leg or on the block or on the floor itself. All right, and in this position, it's similar to what I've said for previous positions. You still want to make sure your spine is in alignment with the rest of the legs. You're not so much coming forward and down, but keeping sideways. So it might mean you don't go down as far, but that's okay. All right, you want to meet yourself where you are. Good, big breath in. A big breath out. Inhale slowly, use your core muscles. We all have them, even if we don't have a six pack, to come back up through center. Extend the arms, let's turn that right foot back to facing forward. And prasarita, a wide-legged forward fold. Just let yourself drape over your legs. Maybe even come side to side and a little bit of a bending the knee and then straightening. You'll feel that lengthening into the hip. Right? Big breath in. Big breath out. And I know I can't see everyone, but I want to encourage you that at any point, if you feel the need to take a little rest and sip water or tea, at any time, doing what's best for you. And that's the same in a yoga class. Okay, so let's come back through center, and we'll probably still mostly be in a wide-legged stance. So just heel toe your feet and your legs back together or as close together as you can get them, about hip distance, sort of bending the knees, shaking things out. Wanted to try a few more balancing poses with you. And one of those is tree pose. This is the pose you see most often, I think, other than seated lotus pose. It's the one you always see on the cover of Yoga Journal and fancy cover shoots. But it doesn't have to look like that. There's 100 ways that tree pose can look. I always start on the left, but feel free to start on the side that feels right for you. Just balancing your left foot against your right ankle. This too, here is tree pose, right? So firming up that right leg. So you're standing nice and tall. Maybe bring hands to the hips and see if this is your tree pose. Can you stand nice and tall and steady? Find a nice focal point, something that's not moving that you can concentrate your gaze on. Or maybe you want to slide that foot up the leg onto the outside of your calf. And see how that feels. And if you can maintain that and feel like, want to try maybe the next step of that, see if you can either slide up or pick up that foot and place it above your knee, not on your knee, on the inside of that left thigh. But you don't want to stay bent over like I am here. You want to stay tall. So only if you can maintain that nice tall posture, I would encourage you to go above the knee. There are some of you too. There's another version where your foot is like this. So if you're an advanced practitioner and you've been doing this for a long time, you can also hold this position. So finding the version of tree that works for you, and your hands may stay at your sides. And if you fall out, it's totally okay. I did that exaggeratedly, so you know you're not alone. Come back through center. And again, you can bring hands to heart center. And now if you want to wave your tree branches around, you can extend the arms out. They can go up overhead. You can grab hold of the wrists or reach towards the sky. I personally find that the more I reach out, the better balance that I have in tree pose and other poses. Vrksasana is the Sanskrit word. So even if you've fallen out a couple of times, come back into it. Find your version of tree. If there are those of you who are still seated, a version of tree that you could try is just by crossing your ankle over your knee And sitting in your chair like this, it really pulls up on those glute muscles and psoas muscles. But that's a version you can try. So we're still in tree here. I'm coming in and out of the pose so that I can continue to talk about the things I hope are helpful for you about learning in this pose. So to apply this to life, right? Tree pose, trees bend and sway in the wind, right? They react to the environment around them just like we have to. So we got to keep our balance. So sometimes I purposely encourage people to really radically sway just to test your resilience. Here's where that big toes come into practice again, right? So if you keep that big toe pressed down, your foot stays flat. If that big toe lifts up, everything starts to keel over. Okay, couple more breaths. And then with as much control as you can muster, come back through center and really pick up that foot you were just bouncing on. Flex it out. You do a little dance. Shrug your shoulders. Let it go. And back through center, right? And we'll switch our sides. So now coming onto the right foot. And again, balancing here. If you're seated, try crossing that opposite leg over in your lap and just sitting back. You can also do this pose standing. It's another challenging pose. Finding your tree on this side, and it may be radically different, right? Maybe last time you were holding your foot up by your hip or above the knee, and this time you just got to keep those toes on the floor, and that's okay. We are very rarely symmetrical perfectly on the sides of the body. It's the beauty of being human. Magazines might tell us otherwise, but the truth is we're all pretty uneven. So you have to adjust. So maybe it's harder on this side, and you need to just keep that foot on the floor. And then bringing your attention back to your hands and arms. Maybe they stay at the hips. Maybe they come to heart center. Maybe they reach up or even behind you. I've done tree pose here, where you're putting your knuckles together and reaching back so you can keep that nice tall spine. A steady gaze on something that's not moving. Good. Breath in, breath out. Again, maybe we want to loosen the arms, bring them up wide and high. And then taking as much care as you can to bring that foot down to the mat again, loosening out feet and the knees. Find your nice forward fold. Take a moment here while you're in your fold to loosen the jaw. So opening and closing the jaw. Good. Inhale and exhale. I'm going to wrap things up with the physical movement here shortly. So let's come on to hands and knees on your mat. It's a position called cat-cow. So bringing your palms underneath your shoulders, your knees underneath your hips. And on a breath in, roll your shoulders back. Press the hips behind you, look forward, inhale. And as you exhale, cat pose, you know what a cat looks like. Round the spine, tuck your chin. Just do that a couple more times. Inhale. Exhale. Breathing in, breathing out. Again, connect back to that breath. Make it audible so that you can really hear it. We call it ujjayi breath in yoga. So it's like ocean breath. It's almost like when you pick up a seashell on the beach and that sound you hear, that's the sound you want to hear in your throat, in your ears. Inhale, exhale. Now let's bring our arms out in front of us. Bring the knees as wide, if not wider than your mat, child's pose or balasana. And let's fold down. So you're sinking your hips as close as possible to your heels. They may or may not touch. Your arms are nice and long and your forehead and nose come down. If that doesn't feel possible in your body, like if there's too much strain, you can bring in a block or a pillow to just let your forehead rest on that. And alternatively, another form of child's pose includes keeping the knees together and just letting yourself drape over that and keeping your arms close to the body, which may feel better if you have low back pain or issues in the hips that don't allow you to bring the knees nice and wide. So in child's pose, we get invited to connect in with our inner child once more. And just absorb the practice, the movement, the breathing, all that connection. We're actually sitting with ourselves in child's pose. Just take notice the rate of breath, the respiration, maybe a bit of perspiration that you're feeling from this practice. And then we will slowly move into a final resting pose just for a few moments before the Q&A portion of this practice. It's really important to get Shavasana. So Shavasana, also known as corpse pose, just involves you laying out flat on your back, on your mat, on your floor, on your couch, wherever you are. It can also be seated meditation. So whether that's on a cushion on the floor or in a chair, just find a pose where you can sit for 4 or 5 minutes or lie down for 4 or 5 minutes and close your eyes and sink into rest. This is where we press the reset button and we prepare to enter back into the real world, knowing we've absorbed this practice that we work on. Focus on your breath. Now through the nose and out through the mouth. Just doing a little body scan. To wiggle the toe. Inhale, feel the belly rise up. Breath in, feeling it in your heart. Relaxing. All the way in from your feet to the top of your head. As you exhale from the top of your head down to your starting to make small movements. Turning the head from side to side. One hand to the heart and one hand to the thumb. Lying down, turning to one side. And slowly coming back to your seat. Starting to blink open the eyes. Getting a sense of the room and you in. In the chair, bringing your feet back to the floor. Rolling the shoulders up one more time. Inhale, reach up the arms. Feel your thumbs pressing in towards your sternum. And raising the thumbs to your forehead center, right in between your eyebrows, the seat of the third eye, and just acknowledging everyone who's in this virtual room with us today. And thanking them for their presence and their attention and their energy. And then returning our hands to our lap, opening our eyes and coming back into the room together.
Oh, Megan, that was such a wonderful practice. Thank you so much. I feel like all of us here and the UTM alumni, that collectively, even though we're virtual, that I can just feel our energy of just being present and calm. So thank you so much for your practice and for your experience with us. So we have a few questions from before our session, and there's some coming in. So I'm just going to jump right in. The first question was, how frequently should we incorporate yoga practice into our lives to feel the benefits? And do you recommend a long session, once weekly, or even shorter sessions on a more frequent basis?
I mean, like anything, it's a practice. So ideally, it's something you can do every day, but I get that we all have very busy lives and a lot of commitments. So know that even something as little as 5 minutes a day, if you're just focusing on breathing or a couple of movements, that's enough. The longer you can do it, like in a session at a time, like I'd say at least 15, 20 minutes, if you can do that daily, that's when you'll see the most profound effects. I sort of feel like when I went through teacher training, even before teacher training, the more I practiced, the more I felt the benefits of yoga. But to not beat ourselves up, that 5 minutes is okay too. And ideally like 55 minutes, somewhere between 5 minutes and an hour, as often as you can.
I loved how during the practice you were in the warrior pose, and you told us that can help us guide us with our decision making. So I can see how doing this practice, even though you're doing it regularly, could also just be a way of life when you're trying to navigate a difficult moment or something.
Yeah. It really is. Being gentle with yourself when you're like, today I don't have time, or I only have 5 minutes, and that's okay.
So is there a time of day that's most beneficial for practicing yoga in that sense?
I guess it depends on what you're looking for from it. There's a lot of people for all forms of quote exercise. They say early morning is the best, but my life almost always necessitates that I have to do it later in the day. So it really depends on what you're looking for. A meditation practice is really helpful first thing in the morning because it kind of sets the tone for the day. And physicality first thing in the morning also is very helpful. But I've also gone and done stuff on my lunch and after work too. So it's got to fit in with where you want. And I don't want to say one is better than the other. It kind of depends. If you're looking for exercise benefits, they say first thing in the morning. But in terms of your mental health, anytime is helpful.
That's a good segue then to this question. And it was wondering if there was any suggestions to promote relaxation during the workday.
Yeah, I will often go, it's sort of a little plug for what I do. So on the podcast, my yoga audio, I ended up recording, I think it's 14 minutes long, a guided meditation that I actually learned from a therapist who, and she gave me permission to use it with people because it was so helpful. And I've had all these people write into me and say, I do this several times a week on my lunch break at work because I get a half an hour or an hour, whatever it is. So that 14, 15 minutes is just time for me to recenter and I still have time to eat my lunch. I would highly recommend as well, and not just mine, there's so many out there, Insight Timer. I have a friend named Jill Weston, and she's a yoga nidra teacher. And she has several, there's millions of guided meditations on there, but they range anywhere from like 6 minutes to however long you want it to go. So I find when you're strapped for time, you just need to get through it, going to an app or following a podcast episode is really helpful.
Well, you're dropping a new term on me here. Did you say nidra?
Yeah, yoga nidra. It's actually nidra. I tend to say nidra, but it means yogic sleep. And she is this particular person that I know is in the local community here in California. They call her the yoga whisperer, and it's just her voice and everything. It just basically guides you through. It's a self-guided relaxation, but you have her voice telling you how to do it. And I'm telling you, you were like instantly in meditation when you go through those sessions. So I highly, highly recommend Yoga Nidra if you can try that wherever you live or online.
I'm writing that down so I can explore that some more. Actually, do you have any other great resources for the origins of yoga or different forms of yoga?
Absolutely. There's a few resources that I did send ahead of time, but I brought some of my books from teacher training. And one of them is the Yamas and the Niyamas, which is basically like it's an ethical and philosophical guideline to living life. Sort of a bad comparison is kind of like the 10 Commandments. It's not really religious. It's really more a guidebook to life, but it's taken from ancient Indian texts and just translated into an English way of understanding it a little bit better. And one of the other books is the Bhagavad Gita. And I think the one that I sent in was by Eknath Aswarian, but this one is by Stephen Mitchell, and it's really good too. It's also an English translation of an ancient text. These can be really challenging. This one especially can be a little difficult to read on your own, not in the context of a teacher training. So I would recommend that. And then the other two, depending what you're looking for. So this one is called The Anatomy of Movement. It's actually by a Canadian author. And this is all about, the functions of movement, what the muscles do and more of the science. And then a hybrid of those two is the heart and science of yoga, which combines both. So these are all the texts. There's a few more actually, but these are the main ones in my teacher training that kind of cover all the bases, I feel like, depending whether you're more interested in the physicality or the philosophy. But that, a true practice of yoga involves all of that.
Well, as a sciencey and mathy person, I'm intrigued by those last two books. And actually aligned with that, there was a question, I'd go back to it. And it was any advice for folks with injuries or physical conditions like osteoporosis that are interested in getting into yoga? I mean, I don't know if those anatomy books that you just mentioned or anything like that, but anything that you can recommend, or maybe yoga poses that are aligned with those kinds of injuries?
Probably more. There's a couple of resources in the chat for chair yoga that's a little more gentle. Like a lot of us are probably familiar with vinyasa yoga, which, you know, it's heated and it's very fast and it's like this. It's like calisthenics, you know, almost. And that's what a lot of us were trained in. I was technically trained in hatha, but which is just the poses themselves. So you can almost do any of the poses, just not in such rapid succession as often taught in some of these heated, really advanced classes. But there's a few resources I put in there for YouTube. And there's a Canadian teacher as well named Diane Bondi. She's in the Windsor area, and another American teacher named Jessamine Stanley. And a lot of their focus is on practices for bodies that are more limited. And there's a lot more resources online now than when I was in teacher training, but starting with chair yoga, and then you'll probably go down a bit of a rabbit hole once you get on YouTube of what's available there. And I invite people to try it through my yoga audio as well. Almost all of the practices that I record there audio wise, I believe are accessible to most people, and I go very slowly and encourage people to do that too.
I suppose as you're working through those motions and those movements, your body starts to adapt and be more flexible too. So it's a practice. I one of the poses you mentioned when we were doing the star pose, and you said this is an expansive pose, and then you open up your potentiality to the universe. I just thought that's so amazing. And if we can manifest that in the aches and pains in our body, then of course that would be wonderful too. So this is a fun question. Maybe it's aligned. Does it defeat the purpose of yoga if we're doing it to music or while watching TV? Like, I noticed how present of mind we were today, but what's your thoughts on that?
Again, I think you get the practice in where you can. So I don't want to judge anybody for doing any of that, because if we're watching a YouTube video, I guess technically that's TV, right? And if we're listening to audio or music, it can enhance the practice. I found the longer I teach, the less I use sound, in addition to what I'm saying, more so at the end, where I want people to be able to have a nice long session and be able to drift away a little bit. And I hear that feedback more from people. Sometimes music can be a distraction, especially in a fast-paced class, because it just encourages you to keep going and not listen to your body. So as little outside stimulation as possible, but also, like, if that's what it is this day and that's what you really enjoy and that's what helps you to practice, then go for it.
I love the flexibility in getting us to at least set aside the time to do it. And I guess it's just that first step.
Yeah.
So we're running out of time. We're at our last question. And maybe this is a good question to end with for people who might be interested in pursuing yoga. Where did you do your training for yoga?
I did it at the Igita yoga studio, actually in Oakville, which is just a little bit southwest of Toronto, and loved it there. That was 2012 and 2013 is when I graduated. And then when I moved here to the California area, I did some more training in San Francisco at Bernal Hill Yoga, as well as Soothe here in Sacramento as well. But my original teacher training was at Igita, and I loved it. They're still operating today. I follow them on Instagram.
That's great. Yeah, I guess we can do our own research to see where there's some local spaces to learn if that's an area that we want to become, more versed in, and maybe even teach, as you have been doing. How long have you been doing that?
I've been teaching since that time, since 2013, but practicing for more than 20 years. When I was pregnant with my second daughter, my doctor actually recommended that I take yoga to calm myself down because I was a bit nervous. And it made a huge difference, huge difference. So I recommend all forms.
Yeah, thank you for quelling our anxiety and calming us today. And I want to thank everyone for their interest right now. With all the questions that came in, we didn't get a chance to go through all of them, but I'm sure through your platform, your My Yoga, that they can find some answers as well. And on behalf of U of T Mississauga, I'd really love to thank you for sharing your practice with us and also your thoughtful responses to the questions from our alumni audience.
Of course, my pleasure. You're so welcome. I'm grateful to all of you for wanting to be here today. It's amazing to share.
All right. Well, to our audience, we received a lot of questions, so we apologize if we were not able to get to yours. When this webinar ends, you will have the option to take a post-event survey, and we do hope you will take a couple of minutes to complete it, as your feedback is very helpful for planning our future events. Everyone who registered for today's event will also receive a link to the full wellness webinar series once it has concluded in early March. And if you enjoyed today's webinar, be sure to watch next week's session. It's entitled, What If Happiness Was a Skill? And it's presented by Associate Professor Norben Farb. For other upcoming event listings, just please visit the UTM alumni webpage, and you should see a link pop up in the chat below. So I want to thank you all for joining us. We look forward to hosting you again at another U of T alumni event.